Good afternoon or morning, depending on where you're located. This is Cindy from CPSE, and I'd like to welcome you to today's sponsored webinar by FirstWatch Fire Operations Analytics and Accreditation Module. It's a pleasure to introduce Chris Carlson, FirstWatch Product Manager. Chris is a former paramedic, firefighter, and fire chief. In addition to his field experience, Chris has held a variety of leadership roles, including serving as a board member of the League of California Cities and California Fire Chiefs Association, Chief Operations Officer at TransCare, and Vice President of Xerox Corporation. Chris holds an MBA and bachelor's degree from the University of Redlands and Executive Fire Officer certification from the National Fire Academy. Joining Chris today is Terry Fitch, FirstWatch Director of Sales, Daniel Brown, FirstWatch Solutions Specialist, and Jordan Hannafin, FirstWatch Report Writer. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into that chat window on the GoToWebinar panel on your screen. This webinar is being recorded, and you will receive an email with the link to the recording so you can share it with others. At the end of the webinar, please contact FirstWatch directly for additional information, and be sure to visit their booth at the 2022 Excellence Conference, March 22nd through 25th at the Caribe Royale Convention Center in Orlando, Florida. Thank you for attending, and now Chris or Terry will begin the webinar.
Well, thank you, Cindy, and hello, everyone from FirstWatch here in Carlsbad, California. I'm Terry Fitch, Director of Sales here at FirstWatch. Just to reiterate a couple of things that Cindy just said, one of them was, as a reminder, is the webinar is being recorded, so we look forward to being able to provide this information to you in that recording. Also, in your webinar panel, you'll notice there's 3 handouts, PDFs that we put in there that explain a little bit more about the product and about FirstWatch a little bit more in detail. Just so you know, we have prepared an hour packed with lots of information and an overview of FOAM. Now, FOAM is the acronym for Fire Operations and Accreditation Module, which is an add-on capability to your FirstWatch system. It also uses your data from either your computer-aided dispatch system or your fire RMS, or it can be both. Using your CAD data, though, does provide a near real-time view of all of your operational data, as well as your performance information like turnout times and that sort of thing, in more of a real time. As I mentioned a second ago, we'll be showing you the FOAM module. This is done by using a live FirstWatch system, and presenting that is going to be Chris Carlson, as Cindy introduced a second ago, but also he has his phone of friends who are going to be helping him out here, and that's Daniel Brown and Jordan Hannafin, both who helped actually build FOAM. They actually helped write the reports and all the other components of this system. So not to delay this any longer, I'll turn this over to our product team. Chris, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Terry. Good morning and or afternoon to everybody. Thank you for your time and joining us today. We are going to spend a little bit of time kind of talking about an overview of how we came into FOAM and why we are kind of uniquely positioned to help you and your organization in its efficiencies of gaining your accreditation and continuing to manage your accreditation. So at the end of it, we'll bring back all the contact information. We'll have hopefully have some time for some quick questions. And in the meantime, I'm just going to kind of dive into a live view of what FOAM looks like and what it does for you. So let me talk a little bit about the history of FOAM and how we got there. FirstWatch at its core basically works with our customers. And what our goal is to try to automate those things that are best automated, leave up to the computer the things that the computer can do, and yet call a human being's attention to things that need a decision or action or just a view from your professional perspective and or your toolkit, your series of knowledge and abilities to deal with. As we started building this out, some of our customers came to us and said, wow, you know, we got this accreditation thing, it's really cool, but, you know, kind of now what do we do? Because it's very labor intensive And it's not easy working with clean data or getting clean data, as I'm sure many of you know. And so we started talking to them. We said, yeah, we should be able to help you out with that, at least identify those things on an automated basis that don't represent your operational capabilities, and then provide for you a long-range plan for quality improvement as you move along. So this became more and more important as CPSE and CFAI moved to more of a model of not just accreditation for accreditation's sake, but for accreditation as part of a continuous quality improvement effort, which is clearly the efforts and the theme. And we have some tools that we integrated into FOAM that will help you not only on a day-to-day basis, but in these efforts that you will identify for ongoing continuous quality improvement. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we move along. So this is the first day California is back to some level of freedom. So this is the first day we've been back in the office. So if we have a few technical glitches, I apologize in advance. And I only do that because I know how my life works, and chances are something's going to go sideways here in the next 45 minutes. But I think we'll be able to get through most of this fairly easily. So those of you that are involved in accreditation will recognize this as the formatted ACR report. You can see that we've modified it up to the most recent version where we have a separate sheet for each risk classification and category. One of the things that we want to leave you with today is a very highly customizable project. So no matter what your standards of cover document is or your strategic plan document is, we have the ability to take this software and fit it to your workflow and your needs. We don't expect you to change your workflow or change your semantics or your terminology to meet our program. We have a highly iterative process, and Jordan and Daniel, the people that actually do the back end work, spend a lot of time with you and our customers defining all of those things that we need to define in terms of data mapping, staffing levels, and all of those things that go into determining effective fire force, effective response force, et cetera, et cetera. So you become very good friends with them once we start implementing these products. The other thing that occurred to us as we were talking to some of our customers is there are many people, or there were some people that said, yeah, accreditation is nice, but I can't really talk my mayor, my council member, my commission into it. They don't want to deal with the expense, et cetera, et cetera. So, but you know what? The information that is provided here is really good stuff in terms of just public transparency, or maybe taking over some of the redundant reporting that we have to do on a monthly basis, et cetera, et cetera. And the added advantage that you have, or that we have in utilizing the FirstWatch data, is that it is clean data, and we know exactly what's going into those reports. So we can argue later on down the road whether we're including or not including the right stuff, but at least everybody knows what is going on. So for those of you that are chief officers, know that one of the biggest challenges that you have is maintaining your credibility, because there's nothing worse in the world than submitting a report on Friday to the city manager, and then on Tuesday when the paper comes out, there's a totally different set of statistics in there because B shift, submitted, some report outside of the chain of command or whatever. So utilizing this gives you the ability for consistency, maintains your credibility, and all around is not only an accreditation tool, but a very good tool for accountability, especially as you get into change scenarios of either adding a new station or facing brownouts, annexing areas, or those types of things. So we built this with a very robust filtering capability so that you can take the accreditation tools and not just use them for your peer review or for accreditation per se, but you can actually use them on a day-to-day basis, which is part of that integration into the culture of the fire service that we're trying to achieve. So you'll recognize this as a standard format ACR report. You can see we've included the relatively new gap feature, which is essentially between your community identified benchmark and the cumulative impact of whatever surveillance periods you're using. So you can see up here, again, because it's a management tool, we can default to 5 years or 3 years or any custom defined dates. So if you really want to use this on a month-to-month basis for reporting by station or by shift or by whatever variables you want, we have the ability to build that for you. This particular customer who we're using as a demo just wants to be able to run it by shift. So they have red, green, blue shift, and we have the ability to filter as such. We have the ability to exclude the current year. So if you are using it for your peer review committee and you're midway through a year and you don't want to include your partial year, you can include or exclude that, as well as display the gap column, this mathematical exercise we have out here. Additionally, benchmarks are now optional, so you can include or not include those as we build this out for you. All of these reports are exportable out to either a PDF or you can cut and paste to include within your standards of cover document. Or other planning document that you may need. So as I pointed out earlier, there are separate risk classifications and risk categories based upon your specific needs. All of these are calculated at the 90th percentile level. So essentially with one mouse click, you have the ability to see, how are you doing across the variety of risk categories and classifications that you have. So you can see fire suppression low risk, fire suppression high risk, and I just wanted to reiterate that these are all defined by you, right? We don't say, oh, here's the 5 categories that you can use. If you have something a little bit unique as it relates to your particular community, marinas, for example, or you have a healthcare campus that maybe is a separate risk category, we have the ability to include, water, wildland interface, whatever it is that's important to you as part of your standards of cover document. We will build that for you, to meet your specific and unique needs. So that's the ACR. We then also have the ability, as we go down here, we've created N numbers, the number of data files that are within that specific universe. So here we have the urban and the rural. For total response time first unit, you can see in this particular case, we have 156 calls in the urban environment that were responded to within this 2-year period. And this was within the hazmat moderate risk category. Of the 156, 110 actually had their ERF full complement arrive on scene, right? So kind of an interesting piece of information. The other ability that you have here is, as you can see, these are blue, so these are hyperlinks, and you have the ability to click on this and it will bring up an event listing of all 156 of those calls with the unique identifier, your call, report number, whatever it is that you want to use, and the relevant data. So if you're worried about response times or you're worried about turnout times, you have the ability to then pull that up and then individually look at the record of each one of those calls. And if we have time or if you have a question about that, we can go back and demo that specifically, but I don't want to get kind of lost in the weeds as we move through. So anyway, that is essentially the ACR, and everything in our reporting structure then is borrowed off of the segment requirements of accreditation, right? So it's all about alarm handling, it's all about turnout time, travel time, first response, ERF, station reliability, station or total call demand, those kinds of things. And they're all figured at the 90th percentile fractal level. So having said that, let me give you an example of some of the other reports that we include within the framework of our foam module. The first one is becoming more and more popular. We call it UHU. We'll probably change the name of it, but basically it has to do with the percentage of time that your units are committed to only emergency calls. Now we have separate reporting that we can actually break out that's not included in foam, but we can include any variety of activities that your apparatus and your companies undergo, whether it be physical training, station maintenance, tower training, whatever. So we can account for, in that report, all of the various activities that you expect your engine and truck companies and ambulances to do, and show, essentially how busy they are. And in a minute, I'll talk about how we can illustrate that over time as well, so you can, make a case for additional units, peak staffing, whatever is important to you. But in the UHU, again, I get back to this robust filtering capability that we have. So you can sort by shift, you can sort by battalion. If you have battalions. And okay, there we go. Thank you. You can pick by type of apparatus, so engines, trucks, other apparatus, investigators, bomb units, whatever makes sense to you. You can pick whatever level of response you want. Now, this particular customer wanted to include non-emergent calls because they wanted to be able to select that and get an overview of exactly what's going on in their entire system. While if you're only interested in accreditation, you're probably going to want to include only those that might be of emergency response nature to reflect your actual operations as a department. Then we also set up a minimum number of calls, and that is because sometimes if you have a station that, for example, is running 230 calls and you have an airport that runs 2 calls, if you can't set the y-axis, which is what this is all about, then you get one big bar and then you got a bunch of little ones that is pretty much meaningless. So you have the ability to change that. And let me add the stations here. We'll just add a couple of stations. And it'll take a second here to generate this report. But you can see we break this out by essentially any way you want. But we have EMS units. This is their essentially community paramedic unit. Is a UHU or unit utilization of about 0.14 or 14% of their day is spent on calls for service. We break it out by engines. So you can again see the activities involved here. And of course, some of our customers want the reciprocal of that. They want to know how much free time or discretionary time they have. But that's just a math exercise, right? You can get there. From there, truck companies, again, if you wanted heavy rescues or ambulance transport units, you can do the same. We color code these, so UHU or utilization of under 25% is green, 26 to 30 is yellow, over 31% or over is red, and we can do this, whatever works for you in terms of what you think is busy and whatever you think is important. Transports is just a quick summary of the number of transports that your either agency does or the ability to look at what we call transport assists, which is how much time are you losing or how many calls are you losing effective capacity for, because your medic engine or your first responders have resources that are committed with the ambulance, either in assisting the transport or assisting with patient care in the back. So you can see here for Station 1, they ran 1,400 calls, 368 transports, and they had their engine or their first responders assist 12 times last month, right? So again, you can pick whatever series of time surveillance periods that you're looking for. Time analysis graph is just a really nice visual summary, essentially, of what's going on with respect to the components of your accreditation. You have the ability to either pick some or all of those components. You can pick risk level or risk category. Let's just go with moderate and high and critical. We'll just pick a couple of stations here. And you can, of course, run your entire department if you would like. We have the ability to maximize the y-axis display there. And again, you can select call type if you want. So I don't want public assists, and we'll go ahead and look at the rest, view the report. And it just gives us a nice graphical interface of, again, based on whatever time period you want, how are we doing by station? So then there's also a summary of these stations that we've selected. What is the performance? So if you want to do by battalion or by region, you have the ability to do that. and not only the stations you selected, but then as a department overall, how are we doing? How does that look? And then how does my individual station or shift compare to what's going on in my department, generally speaking? So this is kind of a nice, quick, and easy, dirty review of what's going on. Turnout time analysis is one of our customers' favorite reports. We have a lot of flexibility in doing this. In this particular example, what we're doing is reporting on the turnout time specifically of units and or stations, and we can go up to districts or battalions or whatever level you want to look at. In this particular case, we have a customer that has AVL, so we're providing them with a comparison of when the electronic data exchange was pushed, and then there's that compares that to when the AVL captures the fact that there's actually movement of the rig. And then we provide the delta between those two, so you can get a quick view of what's going on and how good, B shift is at pushing the button before they roll out of the station, et cetera, et cetera. If you have differential turnout time requirements for EMS versus structure, nighttime versus daytime, whatever that may be, we have the ability to enter, to create that for you as well. So again, whatever is important for your display to your community of what you're looking at and trying to display, we will be happy to build for you. And then at the end, we provide not only the individual units, but a shift summary of basically, or a unit summary of what's going on. This is used by several of our customers that had a real interest in managing turnout time, which I'm sure everyone on this call is familiar. It's one of those things that you can actually manage pretty aggressively and make a big impact without spending a whole lot of money with additional apparatus or people, et cetera, et cetera. So this can be, as all these reports can be auto-distributed by email or any way you want to, really. So let's say that you have a Monday morning leadership meeting. Several of our customers auto-distribute this by email on Monday morning at 5:30, 6 a.m. And then this becomes the focus of the discussion about how we doing on managing our turnout times. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to come back to the aggregated district map here. I'm just going to real quickly get into this. We are replacing this with a new visual display that I will share with you shortly. But what I wanted to point out for here, and this is true here as well as with our new displays that will be out here probably in a month or so. Again, you have this very robust capability to filter, and depending upon what it is that's important to you, we can provide those shape files that allows you to report out by essentially any geocentric method that you want, right? So this particular customs wants us to look at battalion, census tracts, council wards, fire districts, service areas. If you have planning areas, census areas, zip codes, whatever it is that you track your activity by or that's important to you, we have the ability and we'll work with you to create those types of outputs so that you have them. So this is my only purpose of showing this is kind of an example of some of the things that that we can do with that. And in a few minutes, I'll show you the new and improved version, if you will, of what we're doing that's a little more, provides a little more ability for you to manipulate in the nicest sense of the word, the data and play with things to show what we got going. Having said that, is there any questions since we're kind of halfway through at this point? Michelle, anything? Nope.
No, I haven't seen it come through yet.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so continuing down the realm here, we have, this is what I kind of view as just a really nice end of month, end of shift cycle, end of fiscal year report. It's kind of traditional in its method. We call it the Incident Count and Response Performance Report. I affectionately call it the Eye Creeper. Again, you have the ability to sort, filter very robustly, if that's a word, I think it is. For essentially anything that is important to you as we move forward, and those things that are important to your quality improvement efforts. So let me just bring that down here a little bit. will generate the report again. You have the ability here to change up your goals or your benchmarks depending upon what you want to do. So, for example, if you have a really bad turnout time problem and you want to set the initial goal at 5 minutes, I'm making it up. You have the ability to do that and then work your way down to show your improvement. And the reason that that's important is the performance has these light signal cues, right? About just looking at it, you can see how good or not we are doing relative to the goals that we have established, right? So again, this is by unit. You have the ability to select whatever time you want. So as I said, it could be end of month, end of year, whatever. Provides a comparison of the number of incidents by the hazard classification types that you have, again, for the reporting period. If you're a transport agency, the number of transports that were generated out of that. And then the bottom half here is a response report, right? So in a structure fire, for example, you'd have a single incident, but you may have, 7 responses to it, 2 trucks, 3 engines, battalion chief, whatever they may be, right? Just for purposes of clarity. And so the bottom half breaks down essentially what are each of these units doing, and then we're reporting out again on the response time segments that are applicable to accreditation. So you can see at any surveillance period you're looking for, are we doing good? Are we doing bad? Are we consistent with our standards of cover goal? What's going on and who's good, who's bad, and who's indifferent. Again, over here, you'll notice these are hyperlinks. You have the ability to pull up the specific calls that make up that number, right? So if you're looking and say, well, let me see, what Rescue 1 did 117 transports. If I wanted to see what those were and then sort each of those by turnout time or response time or travel time, I have the ability to do that and then play with it in Excel or put it in a standards of cover document or whatever it is that I want to do. And then we have summaries down here below. So overall as a department, how are we doing at the 90th percentile? What are we doing? And you can see here at the end of the day, we had 3,374 incidents that resulted in 3,983 responses, right? So that's what you would expect, in this day and age when, responses obviously, there are multiple responses for incidents as we progress through a given period of time. So that's the eye creeper. We have a very, again, a robust filtering capability, demand by day of, hour of day and day of week. So we can also then show this in total counts, or if you're looking to show this in more of a planning document, you can say what's the average per hour. So if you're looking at total demand by how do I staff for peak staffing or surge capacity or whatever, what does that look like? And this just gives you a quick and easy view of what's going on. When is my demand the greatest? And usually fire defense systems are pretty static and pretty consistent, so this really should not be a shock to anybody viewing this. We have a station reliability report. Station reliability is just basically to what extent the units and or units within a station are responding in those areas that you would expect them to. So at one level, we'll do it by station. In other words, to what extent does Station 1 units, here's a good example, respond into Station 1's area, and you can see at a station level, 88% of the time, Station 1 is going into Station 1's level. As you come down over here, you can see some other things. For example, Engine 13 goes into Station 7's district, 5% of the time. And most importantly, if you have a mutual aid area, automatic aid area, contract area that you're just concerned about, someone that you're always going into and out of, this report provides you exact specification of how many times my stations are going into other areas and how big a challenge or a problem is it, and to what extent are those areas coming in to serve my particular area, whether it be a station, an area where I need a new station or some kind of alternative staffing model as we go through it. So the other part of this that's really important to accreditation I'm going to be spending a little bit of time here because I'm going to be talking about the longitudinal quality improvement efforts as well as kind of the tool that I think really differentiates us from others. So one of the big challenges that it takes up a lot of time and effort on staffing in your accreditation is sorting out those calls that are, legitimately representative of how you perform operationally, and then there are those that, for whatever reason, don't fit into it at all. So, as I said when we started this, that our goal is to try to automate out most of those things that we can automate out, and then just call a human being's attention to those areas, those calls, those demands for service that are important or that need to be looked at because it just doesn't seem right? So, and many of our customers that have gone through peer review as well as accreditation say this is one of the most time-consuming elements of accreditation. So what we've done is we've tried to automate this as much as possible. Again, we create logic on the front end that takes out things that you don't want to include, test calls, strike team responses to Peoria, whatever the case may be. So we'll try to automate those out, but no matter what, there's always going to be some that are like, I don't know, that's weird. I want to look at it. So we've created this exclusion tool, which provides just a listing, basically, of all of the incidents. All the incidents that you've responded to, right? And then you have the ability to sort through these in a variety of mechanisms. So if you wanted to just look at long turnout times, you have the ability to create that sort and start at the top and go 6 minutes, 57 seconds. What happened there? You have the ability to, again, click the hyperlink, which I will do with any luck. That brings you to the drill down for your CAD or your RMS if you want to use your RMS. So you can look and see basically, are there specific things in here that would be a reason of why I had a 6 minute turnout time? And this is de-identified for obvious reasons, but if it was your agency, you'd have the ability to see all the narratives, all the dispatch notes, everything that goes into it. You will provide us with a copy of your, what is going on here? A copy of your policy for excluding documents or excluding records. And then we'll provide this outlier reason. Where is it going? So there is a drop down here for outlier reasons.
Chris, zoom out a little bit, Chris.
I'm sorry, zoom out?
Zoom out. You're probably zoomed in too close.
There we go. Thank you, Daniel. That's Daniel, who's the author of all this. That's why he's here. He can help me navigate this. Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate it. So anyway, we got outlier reasons. You will provide us with a copy of your outlier exclusion policy. And we will work with you, and you will create a list of exceptions, right? So why are you considering this an outlier? Canceled en route, this actually was a non-emergent response, it was downgraded, law enforcement stand back, whatever the case may be. You can then assign it, and then you save it. And I'm not going to save it per se because I don't want to mess with anybody's data. But once you save it, it then turns the color to red like this. So you then have the ability to undo the change to accept it. If it has to go through a committee or for whatever reason, you can do it. But wait, the important part is once you exclude an incident, we then generate this exclusions report for you, right? So let me pull this up here. So when you sit down with your peer review committee, you literally can just hand them this report and say, here is my exclusion policy, here's why we excluded calls, and here's a list of all the calls that we excluded right in front of you. And again, we have this hyperlink ability. So if you and your peer review committee want to sit down and go, well, out of jurisdiction, prove that to me, you can just go pick up this hyperlink, and it'll give you all the information that you need to know from either your dispatch or RMS records, depending upon what we're utilizing to help you collect your data, or both for that matter. And then basically just present, go over right there. And several of our customers that have been through accreditation have told us this probably saves about a day and a half to 2 days of searching through old records and, you know, having arguments about what's included or excluded and whether it makes sense, et cetera. So Exclusion Tool, still working on that a little bit, but it's a very valuable tool, and some of our customers have been very, 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 very happy with that. Let me just talk real quickly about our continuous quality improvement. Remember, I talked a little bit about trying to help CPSE along with their effort at integrating this into the culture of the organization, as opposed to just being a thing that you do every 5 years. We do, for those of you that know us, you know we do a lot of work on the clinical side, clinical quality improvement, protocol compliance, those types of things. And through part of those efforts, we have developed statistical process quality control tools. And so when we started talking to CPSE and they were saying, yeah, these are a couple of the goals that we have, we said, oh, we can probably help you with that. So all of these charts that we have can, again, be filtered very robustly. So you can look at it by stations, call types, census tracts, again, planning zones, whatever it is that's important to you, once again, we can provide that degree of filtering in it. You can go over time. Typically, we reset this for 1 year. This is last year's results. You can set it for 2 years, 5 years, or whatever. That shows you, you know, how are we doing in terms of alarm processing for travel time, turnout time, et cetera, et cetera. This has both rural and urban, if you're an agency that has both urban and rural, and the overall system. In other words, how's your system as a whole, you know, using both of those density designators working out for you. You then again have the ability to look at anomalies. So if you look up here and go, well, this is really high. Why at 135 records, why am I at 5 minutes? And then you have the ability to come up here and say, oh, well, this is ugly. What's going on here? And do a drill down. It brings you up an event list, and again has a drill down. So you have the ability to completely go in and look at stuff and go, oh, okay, so what's going on there? You can identify trends, patterns, et cetera, as you move through that. Let me close that out. So that was one of the lessons that we learned and applied in terms of our clinical overview. The fire defense systems, as I said before, are very static. There's usually not a whole lot of changes in there until there is, right? So those types of things where you maybe face a brownout, face a station closure, have an annexation area, dealing with budget woes, want to show the impact, or you have a strategy. You implemented a peak hours transport unit. You wanted to show the impact of that on the system over time. You then have this literally at your fingertips. You can come in and say, see, we implemented this unit, here in November, and look at what happened to our first unit, our travel times as we, get involved, our response times. So it's a really useful tool in those cases where you need them, and it does give you the opportunity to look at your organization over time to see what's going on. Let me just show you real quickly, and I apologize, I had this all loaded up, but it seems to have disappeared on me. Let me just check here real quickly. Nope. So let me just bring this back up here. I apologize for all of this craziness. Yeah. Ba-dum-bum. But this is some of the stuff that we're doing for our new installs, and this will be part and parcel of the product here. This will be our new landing page here, as I said, within a month. And this is just an example of something that we did for Chula Vista Fire here in San Diego. This was the implementation of their overall ambulance transport program. They wanted to show compliance. So we have this ability to represent this by obviously geographic areas, and clicking on an individual one will then bring up what the performance is within any geographic area. We have direct links then to the reports that I just talked about over here. And the ability to select any time frame that you want. Again, the robust filtering capability. So if you just want to, highlight an area, you can highlight it as that. All of these things are exportable. Obviously, you can use it in a standards of cover document. You can set these up for each of your planning areas. So it literally becomes just a cut and paste or copy of this into your standards of cover document as you're either modifying it or preparing it for the first time. So we're going to be much more geocentrically driven. You can imagine this is a very simple example, but we have large customers that have 65 different stations with 43 planning areas, and we have the ability to break that all out for them, based on the geographic requirements that we have. So, Daniel and Jordan, did I forget anything of massive importance?
I do not think so.
Okay, cool, thank you. Are there any questions that have come in?
So Chris, I did get two questions that came across. The first one is asking, can the reports be written to my department's SOCs?
Absolutely. The whole product is really designed around the ability to meet your needs. One of the tenets that we have here is we don't develop software that causes you to change your workflow, that we look at your workflow and try to develop software to minimize the impact on that. Happens for a couple of reasons. One is it helps with the adoption and of the new technology. And two is it just makes sense. This is a tool. It's supposed to be helping you, right? It's not there that, we want to totally disrupt your organization and things that you've looked at historically. And we just want to be a continuation of what you've been doing and, try to enhance upon that.
All right, this one's going to be trying to stump the panel. I cannot get my effective response force numbers easily. You say you're able to get that information?
Well, we can, and you're right. It's often not easy. But yes, we do that. And I think the secret to it, and I am going to defer a little bit to Jordan and to Daniel here, but we spend a lot of effort up front on the front end doing with data mapping, right? And determining what your staffing level is, where we need to go to get your staffing levels. If you have a constant staffing model based on, trucks and engines and ambulances, that's actually pretty simple, because if we know what the apparatus is, we can, trace it back to people, the number of people involved. If you have a, non-constant staffing or flexible staffing or reliant on part paid or volunteers, then it's a little more complicated. We either have to go into your staffing software, which would be a data source connection we would have to do, or with any luck, you might have an API from Kronos or Telestaff into your RMS system, so that we can tell at any point in time, what apparatus or what number of people we should assign to meeting your ERF. But no, that's what we can do. And frankly, that's probably one of the biggest value adds that we have of this, right? Is we have the ability to go in and figure that out, again, by both risk classification and risk category.
That's all the questions that have come across that I'm seeing. Michelle, have you got any?
No.
All right, good. So I think with that, to wrap up, give people a little bit more time back in your schedules today, I just wanted to say, though, in reflection of seeing the overview of foam, again, I wanted to reiterate, this is using your data. It's using your computer-aided dispatch, which gives you that near real-time view of your operational and your performance data from a dashboard perspective. It allows you, even from the mobile app, to be able to monitor and watch what's going on in your system anytime from anywhere. If you have a web connectable device, you're able to get in, look at your data through a browser view. We do have an app that allows you to look at these through what is considered to be a trigger. The trigger is actually the data filter that is looking at information the way you want to look at it. And what I mean by that is it's not raw data. It's not data that's just coming straight out of the CAD or your RMS. It's data that's filtered with specific criteria that you need to look at it in that way and how you want to look at it. So being able to look at it from a dashboard perspective. We have other capabilities. Another one is called interactive data visualization, which is the acronym for that is IDV. That is the ability to create widgets or windows of data that you want to look at the way you want to look at it. So it's more user configurable and gives you the ability to see that data anytime again from anywhere that you're able to access the internet. So with that, I just want to give you a couple more reminders again, as we talked about at the very beginning. We do have this webinar is being recorded. So please, once you get that link, share it with other folks that want to learn a little bit more about the Fire Operations and Accreditation Module. Also, take a look at those 3 PDFs that we put in there in your webinar panel. That gives you a little bit more in-depth information about what Chris was showing you with the live sites and that information. With that, I'm wrapping up. I'm done, Chris.
I'm good.
I think we're set then, Cindy.
Okay, well, thank you all so much. The link is also going to be posted on our website, I believe through the CPSE University. But an email will go out later today with the link. And I thank you guys so much for attending. And Terry, Chris, everybody, thank you so very, very much. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Appreciate you all.